Keep. Draw. Win the game. 2 black. And 7. Oh, bugger it. 12. 17. Here we go. Torment of Hailfire. G'day and welcome to Top Deck Commander. My name's JP and I've been playing Magic now for 3 years, and I thought it was a really good time to take stock of what I've learnt over the years, put some decks online, talk about what's in them, what's out of them, why, the lessons I've learned. So just mainly this show is about a resource for deck builders, and it doesn't matter whether you're experienced or new. Hopefully you'll get something out of these videos. So the commander I've chosen is Aragorn the Uniter. As you can see, you get a lot of value out of this guy. Every time you cast a spell, you're going to get something. I did think of maybe a burn deck of some kind. Think of it this way. Lightning Bolt, Reverberate, Reiterate, whatever. Shock, Grape Shot, 6 mana, 4 cards, 24 damage. So that might be an iteration in the future. But for right here and now, I focused on making tokens and buffing them up with +4s. I have also focused on human typal. As the tokens are human, I thought, well, I will get more humans into the race there. Use the Horn of Gondor to double them up, that sort of thing. So the strategy is go wide and buff up using the green. Sub-theme in that is instants. Got lots of green instants. The idea being combat tricks, attacking, blocking, getting through for damage. Then play one of these green instants, buff the creature up, make them the token into a 5/5. Yeehaw, extra damage, all that business. So, with that, let's get into it. Right, time to talk about the all-important ramp. First up is good old-fashioned Soul Ring and a Rampant Growth. I'll swap the Rampant Growth out for a 3 visits one day. I'll get back to that in a minute. Next is Nature's Law and Farseek. These guys can actually seek any of the named dual lands: Prairie Stream, Cinderglade, Radiant Grove, Tangled Islet. They could always be swapped out for the faster mana ones. These were just what I had in my collection. We also have Jungle Shrine and Seaside Citadel, these being Selesnya, the dominant colours in this deck, and one of the other colours. My first upgrade on this deck will be a 3 visits instead of the Rampant Growth, and the 2 Triumphs, Spara's Headquarters and Jetmire's Garden, probably just replacing those 2 tri-lands really. That should give me enough cards to ensure a smooth transition to the 4 colours required. I also have a Crowsand Verge to once again help me with the mana fixing and ramp. Highly underrated, this card. I think it does some awesome work. Awesome, especially in this deck, because I do want those 2 colours. I don't have the Myriad Landscape because that requires 2 basic lands, and I've only got 2 of each colour in this deck. So as soon as one comes out, I can't get any more. So I thought it was a bit inefficient. Next up are the Mana Dorks, Catilda, Dawnheart Prime, just for a green and white. Means human creatures can tap and add 1 mana of any of this creature's colours. And for 6, I can tap it and put a 1/1 counter on each creature I control. And there's a first line there that's totally irrelevant. Next is Heronblade Elite. Whenever another human enters a battlefield, I put a 1/1 counter on Heronblade Elite, and I can tap it and add X mana of any one colour where X is its power. That's got an opportunity to go crazy. And the last mana dork is a Fabra Elder. Not a human, but for 1 green white, I get a token, I get some buff, and if the boss is out, then it's going to be tapping for 4 colours, and that's just awesome. Up next, I have 4 ramp cards that are all instants, or to be precise, 3 instants and a flash enchantment. These guys, their job is not just to ramp, but also to be used in combat situations. If I block with a creature, play one of these, ramp, and buff that creature by 4. If I get blocked, I can buff my attacking creature by 4. If I get through, I can buff the guy that's doing damage by 4. So these guys are awesome. Omen of the Hunt, Harrow, Roiling Regrowth, and Entish Restoration, which, by the way, gets an extra 3 lands. Sack 1, get 3 lands if the boss is out. That's huge ramp for 3 mana. Rotation's the next one I have. Now, this is an instant, 1 mana to cast. Once again, I can use it as a combat trick. Doesn't really ramp, but I can search for a land card, put it into play after sacking a land. This is basically to get a Reliquary Tower or any of my utility lands. I've got a Gavany Township in there, etc. And the last bit of ramp I've got is Mirari's Wake. 5 to cast, 3 green, white. So I get the buff, I get a creature. All creatures I control get +1/+1. That's awesome in a token deck. And whenever I tap a land for mana, I add 1 mana to my mana pool of any type that land produced. Get this out in the mid-game, and you're ready for the win come late game. Awesome card, this one. Should be in every Celestia deck. Okay, let's talk about our draw section. First up, I've got 3 tutors. Moonblessed Cleric, number 1. He's there to find enchantments. You've already met the Mirari's Wake. I also have a Kindred Discovery, which is a brilliant card for any typal deck. Aura Shards, once again, tokens come in, that thing will just ping artifacts and enchantments off the board. And Cathar's Crusade, that's going to be one of my buff game-winning cards. So this guy's job is to get it to the top of my deck. Next one I have is the supply/demand. I'm mainly using the demand side of it. Search my library for a multicolored card. I have a lot of cards that are there for protection, give indestructible or hexproof, and they're all multicolors. Plus, I've got the Charm series as well. Broker's Charm and all that, Bant Charm, should I say. And lastly, of course, Eladamri's Call. What a card. Instant, mind you. Celestia colors, buff somebody up, create a token, and find someone for your next turn. Like, how great is that? Defense or offense, he swings whichever way he likes. Next up, surprisingly, they're all blue. Mass Appeal, draw a card for each human you control. There is another one you can get, Distant Melody, but that's 4 to cast. Kindred Discovery, as I said, look at this guy. Every time you put tokens in, you are going to be getting extra cards. Every time you attack with those tokens, you get extra cards. Curiosity Crafter. Yeah, I know, he's not human, but he does have flying and no maximum hand size, and there is draw whenever a creature token I control deals damage. He's a bit iffy in there, but never mind. Palace Jailer gives me the Monarch and exiles the target creature until it disappears. Aragorn, King of Gondor. Like, this guy is a commander in his own right. And in this deck, he's just in the 99. Whenever he attacks, target creature can't block him. If I'm the Monarch, all creatures can't block. That's part of my win con, bit of evasion there. And Eowyn the Shield Maiden, just entering the board here. She creates a token when she enters, which means come combat time, she's going to create 2 more 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. And if I control 6 or more humans, not too hard given the fact she's now 4 of them, I draw a card. So that's awesome. Awesome card. No wonder she is also a commander. Love decks where you have commanders in your 99. You just think they're so strong. Mentor of the Meek is next. Yeah. Still not sure about him. But anyway, a nice way to burn off some excess mana. And Rite of Harmony, chosen because it is an instant, once again, green and white. Straight away, just because it is white, it's going to create a creature, a token, technically. So therefore, I'm already drawing 1 for the 2 mana I spend on it, which is kind of par for the course. If I happen to manage to get another one, great. Has flashback, so I can swing it back out from my graveyard. That's handy. The last 2, Hunter's Insight. It's an instant, so this one I'm going to play whenever a creature gets through for damage. I can play this, buff it up to 4. So even if it's a token, I buff it up to 5 in total. Do 5 damage, draw 5 cards, all for the bargain basement cost. It's 3 mana. How can you say no? And while I'm on the Hunters series, Hunter's Prowess. Sadly a sorcery, but anyway, it's also a way of getting through. 5 to cast. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample. Remembering that's +7/+7 if you're given 4/4 from the boss. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards. So that's effectively, put that on a token, and you're an 8/8 with trample. Draw as many cards as you do damage to the player. That has potential to draw a lot of cards. So that's it for card draw. Now we're going to get on to interaction. All up, I've got 13 pieces of removal. You've already met one of them, the Palace Jala. Also got 2 dual mode lands, County Ambush and Kabira Takedown. Both strong cards, especially when Aragorn is in play. There's just bonus there. I try to have dual mode lands in every deck. They are so handy. They're mana early in the game, and they're a spell late in the game when you don't need the mana. I have Naya Charm, Bant Charm, and Cabaretti Charm. These are the only 3 colour ones, I think, for in this deck. Naya Charm deals 3 damage to target creature. It's got some recursion. I can return a target card from a graveyard to my hand, or I can tap all creatures target player controls. So a bit of evasion there. Bant Charm destroys a target artifact, puts a target creature on the bottom of its owner's library, as good as killing it, or can counter a target instant spell. Cabaretti Charm's only in here for the top 2. Deals damage equal to the number of creatures I control to target creature or planeswalker, and it also buffs creatures by 1/1, but more importantly, gives them trample. There are a couple of tokens there on line 3 I could create, but unlikely I'm ever going to do that. Next up is Ram Through and Bite Down. They both deal damage to target creature equal to the power of a creature you control. Remembering, of course, if your boss is out, you're buffing it by 4. It's all good. Effectively, you can do a double here. You go to block with a token, play one of these, turn your token into a 5/5, and deal 5 damage to some other creature. You could literally get rid of 2 creatures, 1 card. Bite Down also can do the same damage to planeswalkers, and Ram Through, if it's got trample, the creature has trample, it'll do excess damage to its owner. Dromoka's Command, what a card. Seriously, 2 mana, green and white, perfect colours for this deck. Choose 2, prevent all damage target instant or sorcery spell would deal this turn. So that's going to stop a burn card. Target player sacks an enchantment. I can put a +1 counter on target creature, or I can make a creature I control fight another creature I don't control, just in case they're not engaging with that creature. Next up is Devout Chaplain. Tap 2 untapped humans I control. I can exile a target artifact or enchantment. Aura Shards. Whenever a creature comes into play, I may destroy target artifact or enchantment. With this card just coming into play, it destroys one straight off the bat if your boss is out, and it still buffs up a creature. It's a brilliant card. Awesome in any token deck, as I said earlier, I think. And finally, Beast Within. Destroys the target permanent, and its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Once again, another instant. Once again, I can use it as a combat trick. The only board wipe I've got is Vanquish the Horde. In a token deck, this card is fantastic. Lowers the cost down to probably just 2 white, quite honestly. And, destroys all creatures, mine included. But I do have ways to make mine indestructible. So there is a little bit of a trick up my sleeve with that one. So before we get into the next section, I just want to talk about those last 3. Quite honestly, draw, ramp, and interaction are the most important parts of your deck. Everybody thinks it's all about the win con and slapping extra cards in that are going to support it, but that doesn't mean a thing. If you can't get to that win con, if you can't cast that win con, or if someone has already won before you've even got there, well, it's all too late. It means nothing. So if you have spare cards in your setup, draw, ramp, interaction, in that order. You cannot go wrong with that stuff. You'll find your deck comes out quicker, faster, and everybody else will be on their back foot. So with that, we're now going to get into some win cons, and we're actually going to start with recursion. Everything dies in this world, but with a decent recursion package, it doesn't have to stay dead. Apart from the previously mentioned Naya Charm, I also have Edwit, good old Eternal Witness, a great card, gets any card from my graveyard. Human, once again, loving it. Love that card. It's in every green deck I got. Next up is Keturah and Liar, whatever. This is a banned humans 3/3, and whenever I cast a human spell, a target instant or sorcery gains flashback. This is a great way to get double duty out of any instants and sorceries. Got some spare mana, just flashback another buff spell, whatever. Don't forget, it'll still have those triggers because you're casting it. That'll trigger Aragorn. That's awesome. Finally, we have Angel of Glory's Rise. 7 a cast, a bit expensive. It's an angel, so Sigarda would work here. It flies, very handy in a human deck, and it kills all zombies. A rare event indeed, I'm sure, but it does return all human creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield. The last time I played this deck, there was just me and my mate Andy left. I had 3 creatures, 4 life, He's got 4 relentless rats and 6 life. Top decked this, pulled 4 humans out of my graveyard, one of them being Aragorn, which buffed my 3 creatures, and swing in, cleaned up 3 of his rats. He concedes on the next card draw. You just got to love a top deck win. Just that, pulling the right card at the right time, the exact card you need to win. It's just awesome. Obviously, being a token deck, I need other ways to make tokens. So my kind of second commander is Torrens, Fist of the Angels. Whenever I cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. Training's like a little mechanic where they buff up when they attack. Imagine this out with Aragorn. Every time I cast a creature, I'm going to be gaining 2 1/1 humans. That's awesome. Next up, Losanak Captain. Whenever he or another human enters a battlefield under my control, tap a creature target opponent controls, and at the beginning of my upkeep, I create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So once again, we're just keeping all those tokens coming out. We're tapping people. This guy will turn up later in the evasion package. Next, you saw this one in the card draw section. Eowyn, Shield Maiden. Got first strike, 5/4. Really nice card, this. Obviously, it's a commander in its own right, and I love it when you have commanders in their own right as part of your 99. At beginning of combat my turn, if another human entered the battlefield, I create 2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. And of course, there's that card draw that we discussed earlier. Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. What a powerful card this is. Its power is equal to the number of creatures I control, so hopefully a lot. Whenever I attack, for each opponent, create a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. This doesn't have to attack. A lot of people think Adeline has to attack. It doesn't. It doesn't say she has to. She can just sit back. You send your tokens in. For each player, that token will create another token. Up next, Call the Coppercoats. This is an instant, so it can be played at the end of someone's turn. Create a bunch of creatures. You can be swinging out with them next turn. Or you can play this card defensively. Someone attacks you with a bunch of creatures. Pay 3 mana. Chuck out the same number of creatures. +1, you're actually even wider than them. After that comes Reverent Hoplite. It creates a number of 1/1 human soldier creature tokens equal to your devotion to white. Most of my creatures have got white in them. This guy, even if it's just him and Aragorn on the battlefield, he's going to create 2 when he enters, plus himself 3. Aragorn will create a 4th. That gives you a total of 5 creatures on the board. You've gone from 1 to 5 in the casting of a single card. Big impact on the board. Next, I've got a sorcery, Increasing Devotion. For 5 mana, you can create 5 human tokens. This is great. This will work well with a little bit of cheese I got later in the deck. It also has flashback. For 9, you can create 10 tokens. And don't forget, that's really 6 and 11 if the boss is out. That's really good value there. I also have 3 ways to double the number of tokens. First up is Horn of Gondor. This is a Lord of the Rings card, obviously. For 3 mana, it enters, creates a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. And you can tap it straight away. You're going to double the number of humans you have on board. That's right, this thing doesn't just double the number of tokens, it doubles the number of humans. Awesome in this deck. Brilliant in any human deck. It's a must include. You can activate it straight away. It doesn't even come in tapped. 6 mana, double your board. Yeehaw. Next I've got Second Harvest. For 4 mana, I can double all the tokens on the battlefield. This guy is an instant, so once again, I can use it during combat, do a combat trick, dish out some extra damage, whatever. Finally, Anointed Procession is what I would have if I could afford it, but I can't, so it's Risa redeemed. Once again, green and white. 1 mana, green and white, that's great. And for 6, I can tap it and double the number of tokens I've got. One day, if Anointed Processions go down, maybe there's a reprint. I might buy one and replace it with this. Obviously, being an elf warrior, it doesn't quite fit. But the way I see it, for 1 mana, I'm going to get a +4/+4. I'm going to get a 1/1 token. Now, if that was a 1 mana spell, you'd cast it. If that was an instant, you'd cast it. So, sure, I buff someone, I get a creature, maybe it survives, and I can pay the 6 and double my tokens. One thing I have noticed with Risa Redeemed, it kind of sits on the board, nobody sort of notices it. After a couple of turns, they forget that it's there, and then all of a sudden, its controller goes, oh, and I'll tap 6, tap that, double my tokens, now you're in trouble. Next up is Protection. Other than the Bant Charm that gives a small amount, all my protection's wrapped up in creatures. First up is Frontline Medic. This guy makes creatures I control indestructible. He has to be attacking to do that. But it's important to note he gives all creatures indestructible, not just those that are attacking. So you could always, in an emergency, play a Vanquish the Hordes in your second main phase. All your troops are protected, there's no crackback. There's also some other text on it. In case of emergency, read it, but whatever. Next, we have King Darion the 48th. This is probably the most doubtful card in the whole deck. Not 100% on him, but he just has enough to warrant being put in. He's great for the curve. One green and a white, that's nice. Gets me the buff, gets me a token. Gives all other creatures +1/+1. And I can sack it, and creature tokens I control get hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So once again, I can use that as a combat trick, a defensive trick, or if someone's board wiping, or I'm board wiping. There's some other stuff there about creating a token, but it's not a human, so I'm not getting too excited about that. After that, we get into some serious protection. Sareth the Viper's Fang. It gives tapped, read attacking, creatures death touch. All untapped creatures have hexproof, allowing me to protect key cards. And even if I do attack with an important creature, I can pay one, tap Sareth, and untap my important creature when someone's targeting it. If used wisely, it could take 2 removal spells to remove the commander. Gotta say, too, with text like this, Death Touch, etc., I'm surprised it was a human creature. Now we get to Sigarda, Font of Blessings. It's an angel, I know, but it gives other permanents hexproof. I'm going to repeat that. Permanents hexproof. Enchantments, artifacts all get hexproof. I have 3 tutor cards in my deck, and Sigarda is the first creature I tutor for. It also lets me look at the top card of my deck, and I might play angel and human spells off the top, so a slight card draw advantage there. Lastly, Boromir, Warden of the Tower. I've not read the Lord of the Rings books, but seriously, I knew Boromir was going to die. Sean Bean, does he ever get through a show alive? Boromir has, anyway, back on track. Boromir has Vigilance, a bit of counterspell against Cascade and other effects that cast spells for no mana. This would shut down my Atali deck in a flash, and he can be sacrificed to make creatures indestructible. So much value for 3 mana. What a great card this is. Seriously, sack him at the start of combat, play your Vanquish the Hordes, charge on through unimpeded. What an awesome card. So far this has been cute. We've made a load of tokens, we've protected them, we've got creatures on the board, and we've got a little bit of buff with the Mirari's Wake and the King Darion 48th. But what I've added now is 4 more big buff cards. What I want to do is buff and bash. So the first one here is Aragorn of the Guard. Whenever a human enters a battlefield, creatures I control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. So, play that increasing devotion, everybody's suddenly +5/+5. Aragorn and Arwen wed. Oh, they got married, isn't that cute? When they enter the battlefield or attack, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. Bit of a slow burner there, but run this with Frontline Medic, and you're just going to keep attacking each turn and keep buffing up. Now we get into the serious ones. Kyla, Sigardian Emissary. Whenever another human enters a battlefield under my control, put a 1/1 counter on it. Other humans get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyla. So I could play this, tap the Horn of Gondor. That's going to create 4 or 5 tokens on him, which is going to buff everybody else 4 or 5. That's awesome. And of course, yes, no token deck could be complete without Cathar's Crusade. Whenever a creature ETBs, +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Imagine him with Adeline, something like that. Him or Kyla, in fact. With Adeline creating tokens every time it attacks. The thing just goes ballistic. So that's the buff. And now it's time for the bash. And in order to get through and bash, I've got 4 cards. 2 of them I've already mentioned, the Cabaretti Charm, that second line there. Creatures get +1/+1 and get trample. And of course the Losanak Captain. Put a load of tokens in, tap out all their creatures, charge in for damage. The 2 big ones I'm relying on, Surak Dragonclaw. He also gives a bit of protection here. Creature spells can't be countered. Other creatures I control have trample. And of course, overwhelming stampede. Creatures get trample and +X, where X is the greatest power among creatures of control. So if the boss is out, I can do the +4/+4 green part of it onto my boss, make him an 8/8. All my tokens now swing in for 9/9 with trample. Yeah, beat that. You're not. So awesome card in this deck. The poor man's Craterhoof Behemoth, really. Now, with all that done, it's time to relax and have some cheese. And here are some of the cheesiest, jankiest cards you're going to see in this deck. So first up, we've got an Impact Tremors. Look, this thing pings them for 1 damage to each opponent for every creature that enters the battlefield. I'm slapping tokens in. I could be dealing out loads of damage. Loads of damage. Tap that Horn of Gondor. Hit him for 6, hit him for 8, whatever, increasing devotion. Flash that back from the graveyard, that's 11 damage. And if that piece of cheese isn't good enough, check out what's coming up now. Devilish Valet. Whenever another creature enters a battlefield under my control, I can double his power. Now I'm going to say that again, double. So not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. That's 5 creatures. 32 if there's a 6th creature coming in. He has haste, you can cast him, tap your Horn of Gondor, and he could literally one-shot someone. Add to that Inscription of Abundance. Check out that second line. Well, bullet point technically. Target player gains X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control. There we go. Go the Devilish Valet, play the Inscription of Abundance, gain yourself 30-odd life. Remember, you could play that again because of Catilda and Lear, whatever. Now, if that's not cheesy enough for you, I've got Le Grand Fromage here, the biggest cheese of them all. Legion Loyalty. Let's give everybody Myriad. Tokens come in, they get Myriad. The tokens attacking, you know what I mean. They attack, they get Myriad, I make more tokens. Sure, they disappear at the end of combat, but I can play Second Harvest and copy those, or I could tap my Horn of Gondor and make a token for every token. There's options. And of course, because the whole deck's got a lot of whenever a creature or a human enters a battlefield, there's a load of other stuff going on. So let's have a quick run through. Heron Blade Elite would get +1s for every human it enters, gets bigger, can tap for more mana. How about a bunch of Reverent Hoplites popping in? You attack with the original, create 2 others that are attacking the other 2 players, loads more tokens. Adeline. Oh my word, I don't even know what the heck goes on with this one. Yeah, it would make more creatures, but the creatures it creates wouldn't make more tokens because they're already attacking. I think. Somebody correct me. Horn of Gondor, let's just tap that. As soon as you've got all these creatures out there, all the myriad creatures, tap Horn of Gondor. You're going to create human creature tokens equal to the number of humans. Mentor of the Meek kicks in, of course. They're all going to be quite low in power, maybe. You get some card draw. Oh, how about you create more palace jailers? More humans entering the battlefield. Aragorn, King of Gondor, though it is legendary, you'll create one long enough to regain the monarchy before you have to sacrifice it. The Moonblessed Cleric comes in. I can go and search my library for more enchantments. The Angel of Glory's Rise would create tokens, pull humans back out of my graveyard. Eternal Witness would make tokens. I'd be pulling things back out of my graveyard. And of course, don't forget Beregond the Guard would trigger. That would make him +1/+1 for each human that enters, which he passes on to every other human. Kyla, the Sigardian Embassy, I was going to say, Emissary, gets +1/+1 counter on it for every human that comes in. They get +1/+1 for each counter on it. All of a sudden, this guy explodes. Likewise, Cathar's Crusade, that's going to slap a load of tokens on everybody. Lossanak Captain, he's going to activate. I'm going to be tapping all their creatures down left, right, and centre. And of course, Devilish Valet. I'd make 2 copies of Devilish Valet to attack people. And if I attack with him and a couple of tokens, all of a sudden I'm just, what am I creating? Let's call that 6 creatures. All my Devilish Valets go 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64 tree in no time. Just insane. Even the other ones, Aragorn and Arwen wed. Whenever it enters a battlefield, Aragorn puts, and Arwen, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature. Well, that's cool. They'll come in, they'll put the counters, then they'll get sacrificed because they're legendary, but it doesn't matter. And of course, let's not forget the first piece of cheese, Impact Tremors. Loads and loads of creatures coming in with Myriad. Suddenly, the Impact Tremors is just exploding. So loads of explosive, cheesy jank going on at the back end of this deck, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Just having people suddenly go, huh? What happened? Now, I did originally have a Chandra's Ignition in this deck. If you don't know Chandra's Ignition, the target creature deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. That was going to be another semi-board wipe. But, getting Devilish Valet on, getting enough tokens on to make him 32 or 64 or whatever, and then paying the 5 mana for Chandra's Ignition, it was just too mana heavy a combo. So that's the show. Hope you're inspired, hope you learned something, hope you're entertained. Hit the subscribe button, because next time, Timon and Rhoda. This one taps one of their creatures at the beginning of their combat. This one gets a +1/+1 counter every time I tap one of their creatures. The other 98 cards all tap creatures. Draw cards equal to number of tapped creatures. Destroy tapped creatures. It's all about tapping. So it's Azorius control without being really frustrating, just mildly irritating. Meanwhile, if you like the show, do me a favour, hit the like button. If you didn't like the show, well, leave a comment. That's okay too, because, the algorithm doesn't care and neither do I. See you next time. Meantime, go live your best life. Cheers.